Hello and welcome everyone. I hope all of you are doing good. I welcome you all to today's session of the Daily News Analysis, a place where we analyze the most important news stories from the Hindu and the Indian Express. That is the two most significant newspapers for any UPSC CSE aspirant. First of all, if you are here and if you have chosen on a Sunday to watch this video, I would like to congratulate you because you are one of the few people who have decided that in your journey of achieving your dream, there is no weekly off. There is nothing as such called an off day. A lot of you would want to take a day off or two in a week, but if you have chosen not to do that, I would actually congratulate you and I would tell you that you are in the minority. Few people who have decided that till the time that they achieve their dream, they would not keep quiet. So great. On that note, let's see what are the different articles that we have taken up for you today. But before that, one more important reminder that in case you are looking for any kind of mentorship, any kind of help in your UPSC CSA preparation, any stumbling block that you think is able to stop you or could stop you from achieving your dream, we are here to help you out. Here at Narayana IAS, we are here to offer you the most comprehensive courses that you can actually imagine. We have 1 year and 2 year integrated courses which cover each and every aspect, ranging from the prelims examination to the mains examination up till the stage of interview. Every stage that you clear, we will be there to help you out to make sure that your goal is simpler with us. Our entire course covers and lays emphasis on answer writing practice, on prelims question paper, practice papers, CSAT, and much, much more. If you want any other information regarding this, please check out the description of the video. You'll find a link. You can visit our website and you can talk to the people who are here to help you out. On that note, let's see what are topics that we have taken up for you today. So the first topic that we will be discussing is the protocol for defense export. Now you would have seen multiple articles wherein Indian government is boasting about the fact that we are expanding our defense export. It's increasing at a very promising pace. However, there are still stumbling roadblocks. There are still certain regulations which stop us from exporting a lot of stuff outside India. On that note, let me give you your first homework for the day. And it will be a pretty interesting thing for you. Do try and find out which is the country to which we, India, that is, exports most of its defense goods. Again, just a simple Google search will tell you the answer, which is the country to which we export most of our defense stuff. Tell me the answer in the comment section. I will be waiting for that. Second article that we'll be discussing is about aquaculture, the potential that it has to boost farmers' income, also to provide many other employment opportunities in India. Then we have an article about how Cambodia and China are coming close to each other, not really good for us. Then India-Sri Lanka MOUs, multiple MOUs have been signed during our Prime Minister's visit there. Then how the UGC University Grants Commission is taking a step forward to give validation to foreign degrees in India. A good news for all the students of India who went outside, took a degree and then came back. Then there's an article about how Indian highways are not performing very well, especially when it comes to road safety. What is it that we can do? What is it that the CAG report points out? And where are we headed? All these articles, let's start with the first one then. The first article is about the protocol for Indian defense export. Now, this is mainly an article that we have taken from the mains examination point of view. Defense, anyways, has always been one of those topics where the UPSC has been very interested. There are different types of questions that you can see in defense. If there's a major import or export of a certain weapon, the questions can be asked from there. If there's a new technology that is emerging, if there's a new partnership that India has been a part of, all these kind of questions can be asked. One thing that is very promising from India's point of view is that in the past few years, our defense export has been increasing consistently. So just to put that into context, the aim that the government of India has is that by 2029, we want to have a defense export of about 50,000 crore rupees. This is where we want to reach. And again, it depends a lot on the kind of commodities that you're exporting. So for example, when we say defense equipment, usually the first image that comes to your mind is fighter jets, submarines and big missiles and missile defense system. That's just a part of it. These are high ticket items. But on the other hand, there are many other equipments as well. something as basic as bulletproof jackets, something as basic as special boots that are prepared for the armed forces, helmets, night vision goggles, all these are a part of defense equipment. Not just this, think about ammunitions. You don't just buy a gun, you buy bullets to be put inside of it. So that is something that India exports quite a lot. While we don't export a lot of high ticket items per se, but we do export a lot of these items which are day to day required to keep your weapon system running. This is where this article says that India has been doing well. Our exports have been increasing consistently at a steady pace. It also has to do with the fact that private sector also is now playing an important role. Gone are the days when the government only depended on government companies such as HAL and DRDO to do most of the work. Now we see a lot of private investment coming in. Boeing and Tata, for example, working together. There are entities from Mahindra, Adani Group. All of these are entering into the field of defense. Now, what does this article tell us? This article mainly talks about what exactly do we export, why is it so important, and what are some of the things that we have to now pay attention towards. Now, for any powerful country in the world, when I say a powerful country, think about which country comes to your mind first. You might think of US, Russia, China, France, all these countries. The one thing common in all of them is that they are self-sufficient when it comes to their weapon system. They are not dependent on other countries to buy weapons from and then use it. They might buy some of it, but their frontline weapon systems are their own. This is where India has been lagging. We do have some things to boast about. We do have BrahMos missile that we developed in collaboration with Russia. We do have Tejas, we do have the Pinaka missile system, but apart from that, we don't have a lot of frontline weapon system that we have built on our own. This is a path to becoming a superpower. When you say that we want to become a superpower, one of the big components of that is, are you self-dependent when it comes to weapon system or not? Now, when India exports certain strategic commodities, certain strategic exports, there are certain controls that are imposed over it. You can't just openly export whatever you want. There are certain regulatory norms that have to be followed. For example, as of now in India, what can be exported, what cannot be exported, it has to be governed by a handbook. Now, this handbook is titled as India's Strategic Trade Control System, which is issued by Directorate General of Foreign Trade. Now, what exactly is the idea? The idea behind it is that you should not export something that can be used against us or that can have something called dual use. Now, in terms of defense, in terms of weapons, etc., there's a phrase that is very often used in the world that is called dual use. Now, dual use basically, as the name suggests, is a kind of technology that can have more than one uses. Take an example of drones. Drone is a prime example of what dual use technology is or can do. The same drone is used by the farmer to spray pesticides over large parts of their field. And the same drone is now used by countries such as Pakistan to drop illegal weapons into India. And similar kind of drones, not exactly the same, but drones are used by America to launch missiles hundreds of kilometers away to kill their enemies. The same drones are being used by Ukraine against Russia. So drone as such has a dual use mechanism which can be used for civilian purposes also and can be used for military purposes as well. So when there's a technology that has a dual use, not just for civilian but for military purposes as well, there has to be controlled export of such commodities. That is the idea of our own policy as well. Apart from that, when it comes to weapons of mass destruction, that can have a devastating impact on a large part of the population, those also cannot be exported freely. There have to be certain regulations put in place. We have to make sure, are they going into the right hands? Would they be used against the general public, or would they be used against a country that does not have any ill intentions against us? Because of which our export of a lot of these things are actually controlled. Now, how does it work? It is not just the weapons. There are many commodities from India that you cannot freely export. All of these are listed in something called the SCOMET list. It's a very important concept. Do remember this. Now, what exactly is the SCOMET list? So, SCOMET list is basically, in simple terms, it's a list of commodities whose export is limited from India, whose export is regulated. SCOMET here stands for special chemicals, organisms, materials, equipments, and technologies list. It has 8 categories in total. Again, not all of these are weapons. As the name says, some of these are chemicals, some of these can be organisms, something that can have a harmful impact in the long run. There is 8 categories in this list. Category number 6 mainly is of defense equipment. If someone has to export a commodity that is listed in this list, they first have to take authorization that is given by Department of Defense Production. So unless such an authorization is given, such commodity cannot be exported. That's a form of export control that many countries have. For example, if you look at US has open policy that they will not sell their top of the line weapons. The weapons that are used by the US military themselves are usually not for sale to other countries. So India also has certain defense related or other parts or other things that cannot be exported freely. There are certain regulations that are put in place. Internationally also, there are certain obligations which are imposed on different countries. India itself is a signatory of multiple such organizations. For example, we are a signatory to what is called as a Wassenaar arrangement. Please understand, this is Wassenaar arrangement. This is not Wassenaar treaty, Wassenaar agreement. Wassenaar agreement is something else. I'm just telling you from your examination point of view. Wassenaar agreement is something else. Wassenaar arrangement is something else. So we are talking about Wassenaar arrangement that basically puts restrictions on dual use goods, that you cannot export stuff that can be used for dual purposes. The example of drones that I gave you. There is something called MTCR where India again is a member. MTCR means that up till a certain limit, for example, if an MTCR member country has to share their missile technology with some other country, they can only share technology with a range of maximum 300 kilometers, not more than that. You can only share technology of range over 300 kilometers with the other country if they also are a member of MTCR. It's a very interesting kind of idea and it has related to India as well. For example, if you notice a few years back, the range of BrahMos missile that India used to produce with Russia, the range of BrahMos missile a few years back was about 290 kilometers. Why? Because a few years back, India was not a member of MTCR. So Russia was bound that they could not give us technology for BrahMos missile that would increase our range beyond 300. Now that India has become a member of the MTCR, the result is that now the range of BrahMos has increased, has gone beyond 300, 400, 450. This is where BrahMos has actually gained or India has gained because of an MTCR membership. We are also a member of the Australia group that talks about restriction on export, etc., of biological weapons or chemical products. Then we are also a member of these conventions as well. There are some other treaties as well where India has not been able to become a member. One of them you might have heard of, Nuclear Supplier Group, NSG, where India is not a member. It's a very interesting idea of how a country becomes a member in such groups. Most of these groups work on the basis of consensus. Consensus means if a new member or if a new country has to become a member, let's say in the Australia group, every existing member must say yes. Even if one of them says no, a new member cannot be admitted. Now, this is where India is struggling because wherever China is a member, India is not able to become a member. Like in NSG, China is a member, Nuclear Supplier Group, so they're not saying yes to India. That is where India is actually facing kind of a roadblock. NSG is something that came into being as a result of India only. When India had the Pokhran test in 1974, as a reaction to it, NSG basically was made so that nuclear technology, nuclear fuel can be controlled within a few countries. Anyways, now let's come back to the idea of boosting our defense exports. So as I said, the government has been focusing a lot on improving our defense export. This is what they are doing. We have a defense export promotion cell that has been established. We contact many other countries around the world that are in our in our income group that cannot afford very expensive weapons coming in from US, Russia, Israel, China. This is where our targeted market is. So we basically focus on them. We also have defense production and export promotion policy that was formulated to make sure that our own defense production is popularized around the entire world. India right now exports stuff to over 100 countries. Now, please put this into context. Again, don't do this mistake of assuming that when I say we export to 100 countries, don't think we are sending missiles and aircraft carriers and fighter jets to 100 countries. As I told you, defense export includes a lot of stuff. It can be ammunitions as well, it can be variables as well. When you have a gun, you need bullets. So those things also have to be exported. And in that context, we export to a lot of countries. Some of the famous things or some of the most significant things that we export include the Dornier aircraft that is mostly used to keep an eye on the water bodies used by coastal guard, for example, in India. Then the Akash missiles, Pinaka rockets, BrahMos, radar simulations, all these things are stuff that India usually exports. Tejas also is something which has seen interest from many countries around the world, but in fighter jet market, there is a very tough competition, especially from countries such as South Korea. They also have been expanding a lot of their defense export. So we're facing a tough competition there. Apart from that, there are certain other reforms that the government of India is trying to carry out. The government of India wants to have technology transfer from as many countries as possible. Like when we bought Rafale from France, we told them we'll buy, let's say, 36 of these planes, but then you tell us how to make these. You transfer the technology to us so that in the long run we can become self sustainable. As I told you in the beginning, the idea or the aim that the government has is to reach up to 50,000 crore of defense export by 2029. At present, as per the numbers given by the government of India, we are almost in the middle of it, 23,000. It really depends on our growth, on if we are able to export high ticket, big value items or not. That will determine whether we are able to achieve this target of 50,000 crore by 2029 or not. So, good luck to all of us. The next article that we have from the point of view of the prelims examination is about aquaculture. What is aquaculture and why is it that the government focuses so much on this? Now, there are two aspects to understand here. Number one, our agriculture has a problem. The big problem with agriculture is the issue of disguised unemployment. Disguised unemployment is a situation where if 50 people are working on a field, not all of them are contributing. Means even if you take out 20 of them, the remaining 30 will do exactly the same work in the same time period. So the excessive people, 20 people, are not adding any value. Even if you remove them, the productivity will remain the same. So those 20 people will be called disguised unemployed. That's a problem that our agriculture has right now. Agriculture in India employs close to 45-46% of our workforce. Still, it only contributes around 16% to our GDP, meaning that there's a big mismatch between the number of people employed and the contribution that it has in our GDP. This is where the problem is. So, what is it the government is doing? In the past decade or so, the government is pushing the farmers away from agriculture into different types of allied sectors, pushing them towards fishery, pushing them towards dairy farming, etc. This is where aquaculture also plays an important role. And this is where you see these kind of questions as well. Agriculture related questions are pretty common. By the way, all these questions that you see on the screen, these are your homework. You have to attempt these and tell us in the comment section what exactly are the answers to these questions. Now, the context of why this article is written is because the author thinks that it is high time that the government focuses even more on aquaculture. The article also gives us a few examples of certain states that are doing a good job. In simple terms, aquaculture would mean farming of prawns and shrimp. Now, prawns and shrimp are stuff that are not consumed on a large scale in India, but these are very important and precious export commodities. See, seafood is a major export commodity from India. It goes to a lot of Western countries, it goes to Europe, it goes to America, and these are again things that are high on demand. They require a certain kind of atmosphere, a certain kind of climate, certain kind of water to be farmed, and many states are actually making efforts to push more and more innovation into it. This is the article, this is what the article actually tells us. So where does India stand as of now? As of now, India is second in the global prawn production, and the coastal states, as you can imagine, are doing the best job here. Andhra, then West Bengal, Tamil Nadu, Odisha, Gujarat, these are the ones that are actually doing a very good job. Amongst the prawn population, specifically the black tiger prawn has a good value. a lot of value, a lot of demand around the international market, and it requires certain specific climatic conditions to actually flourish. What are those? It requires salinity of about 10 to 25 grams salt per liter of water. That's not easy to maintain. For example, if you have to decrease the salinity of a water body, you have to keep on mixing fresh water in it. And if you have to decrease or increase the salinity, you have to stop the flow of fresh water so that when the water evaporates, the salinity will keep on increasing automatically. So it's not as easy as it seems. It's not that automatically the prawns or the shrimp will start growing. You have to give them the proper present conditions. And this is what has been happening. So there are certain examples of what is happening in India, what the articles tells us. For example, number one, there are smaller ponds that are used for their yield. So anyone who has to start working in this field has to focus at the smaller the pond, the easier it would be to control the situation, to control the climatic conditions, to control the salinity, to control the temperature, for example. So smaller ponds are usually good for higher yield. Water salinity has to be maintained, as I told you earlier. Andhra Pradesh, West Bengal are doing it very well. Then we also have biosecurity measures that are taken. Plastic nets, for example, are used so that no diseases can be spread. Diseases that are usually carried by birds, etc., are eliminated. Then the other scientific inputs that have been given from research institutes such as ICAR. All these are examples of what happens when an entire ecosystem comes together to work. Great things can only be achieved when multiple stakeholders come together and do their bit. In this case, multiple stakeholders involve the central government to have supportive export policies, the state governments to realize what infrastructure has to be needed, invest in that infrastructure, research institutions to give the proper input, the proper kind of a knowledge that is required for farming or the harvesting of such kind of species. When all of them come together, then we have a situation where you can ultimately depend for your entire income to come from this part, and you can let go of agriculture. This is what the government wants to achieve in the long run. Now, India right now is witnessing a very impressive growth in terms of prawns and shrimp production. On the other hand, there are also issues that it's not as dependable as some of the other occupations. See, it's similar to farming in the sense that farming also depends a lot on climatic conditions. It is not dependent on how hard you work. Similarly, here also, if there is a significant disease outbreak, it can impact the harvesting. And even if it doesn't impact the harvesting, when you are exporting something, especially when you're exporting to Western countries, there's a very stringent quality check. So if any kind of a disease or even a trace of disease is found, you can be rest assured that that item will not be exported, and that becomes a big problem. So the government has been trying to work towards how we can eliminate most of these diseases. One of the main ones is the white spot syndrome virus. The research institutions like ICAR, ICMR are working against it to see if we can provide a solution to this. Now, this is also linked to blue revolution. Blue revolution is increasing the number of fish, increasing farmer concentration in marine activities, pushing them towards fishing. India is blessed to have such a long coastline. And not just the coastline, we focus a lot on the ocean and the sea, but we don't focus on the rivers. In even the inland water system that we have, the rivers that we have, the ponds that we have, are actually very well suitable to have impressive production of these fisheries and fish related commodities. This is where the farmers have to be pushed towards making more and more investment of time and money into this area. It also has led to better employment opportunities, specifically for women as well. The government of India tries extremely hard to launch multiple schemes so that the problem of unemployment in the rural areas is curtailed. We have the Manrega scheme running, we have multiple other schemes running on a regular basis. All that is also helped with these kind of initiatives when the government pushes farmers toward this allied sector activities. All in all, it's a win-win situation. It can be slightly tricky in the beginning because when you are involved in agriculture, you have a kind of a backup in the form of stuff such as MSP. You know that if you are growing wheat or rice, it will be acquired at a certain price. So the farmers don't want to go beyond that or experiment. This is a problem that Punjab is also facing. Punjab, as you know, is suffering from depleting groundwater because the farmers are dependent on rice cultivation. So the government has to make this kind of a field much more lucrative. It's also in line with sustainable development goals. As you know, there are a total of 17 sustainable development goals that the countries are running to achieve by 2030. Out of these, focusing on aquaculture can directly impact at least three of these sustainable development goals: zero hunger, decent work by putting or by giving more employment opportunities, and life below water by ensuring that whatever activities are happening, fishing, etc., are happening in a sustainable manner, not in a manner that would disrupt the entire marine ecosystem. This is how this particular issue is actually connected to various other aspects. The next article that we have here is about our neighboring country, that is Cambodia. If you look at our neighboring countries, again, when I say neighboring countries, I don't mean to say countries that share a land border with us essentially, but just in the nearby vicinity. If you think of the countries in our vicinity, probably the country that we hear or we discuss the least about is Cambodia. Pretty near to India. If you go from India to Myanmar, the next country will be Cambodia, but still we hear very, very little about Cambodia somehow, because it's not a very economically prosperous country, so we don't think that we can have a lot of trade. But the problem now is that Cambodia, which has almost always had a tilt towards China, has been improving its relationship with China even further. Why? The news is that China had invested a lot of money in their naval base, and that is now being inaugurated by Cambodia. That is where it is in the news. Now, which air base is this? What exactly is this? Let me give you the exact context of this. This naval air base, or the naval base rather, is called as a Ream Naval Base. It has been upgraded by China. Now, when China does something like this, China invests a lot of money. It obviously does not augur well for us. It does not augur well for other countries that are not on good terms with China, such as US. India has a bigger problem here. For a long time, India has believed that China has a policy called the string of pearls. Now, please understand this. China does not officially say that they have this policy. India believes that China has a policy called string of pearls. What is this policy? Our idea is, if this is, let's say, southern coast of India, we think China is deliberately investing in naval infrastructure to surround us. Like they have a port in Pakistan, Gwadar port, then they have a port in Sri Lanka, the Hambantota, then they have good relationship here in Maldives as well, then they have good relationship here with Bangladesh as well, then they have good relationship with Thailand as well, so on and so forth. And this idea of having a strong naval presence in Cambodia is a part of that plan. That is what our fear is. On the other hand, US also thinks that this is not something that the country should do. They should not take help from China when it comes to building their strategic infrastructure. But you know, China is like that relative that comes to your place, gives you a lot of money. Even if they don't talk to you in a good manner, you are happy with it because they are giving you money. So for these least developed countries, the LDCs, they are happy with China giving them all this help. What has Cambodia said? Cambodia has said that there is nothing to fear about. This is not an exclusive China naval base. It's open to other countries as well. But you also can imagine, if it is built or upgraded by China, how open would it be to others? It's not very difficult to imagine. Now, just to put that into context, let me just show you this. Where exactly is this? So that you can understand this better. So if this is the map, this is India, and you can enter basically from in just a second. Yeah. So this is India. From India, you can enter Myanmar, and then we have countries such as Laos, and then we have this Cambodia. Then there's Vietnam. In Cambodia, this is where this naval base is. So on the other hand, it's not very far from the Andaman Sea, not very far from the Andaman Nicobar Islands. This is where this idea is. And this is also again very close to the South China Sea, an area where China obviously dominates. China does not want anyone's interference here. That is a larger context of things, of where this particular naval base is. Now, it's very simple to understand why is it that many other countries will be worried about it. US is worried because they don't want China's influence to increase. They don't want other countries to fall into the debt trap of China. They don't want that other countries are on so good terms with China that they can't even say no to them when the time comes. So that is one problem. On the other hand, see, to be true, it's not new. Most of the countries in our neighborhood, especially low income countries, have always had a tilt towards China. The problem with China is, or not the problem, but how China works is, let's say you are a country and you want to build a big infrastructure project. So your first option is to go to a World Bank. World Bank, however, does not give loans to everyone. They would see how your economy is, they would see if you are able to give the money back. If you are a loss making government, they might put some conditions also. So when World Bank says no, or when other countries say no, you know that there's one country that will never say no to a loan requirement. That is China. You go to China, they'll give you a loan. Now, mind you, Chinese loans are not cheap. China usually offers a loan at a higher rate of interest than the international market because they have a lot of free cash. And they know the projects that they're sponsoring are the projects that are not sponsored by other countries, and that is why anyone has come to China. The other part of the issue here is that when China gives you money for infrastructure projects, it is the Chinese workers that will come to build that project. So your population is not getting any employment. So it's not that Cambodians would have gotten some employment here. It's the Chinese companies that will take the contract. The Chinese workers will come and work there. That is again a bigger part of the problem, and that's how the countries get kind of trapped into the issue of the debt trap of China. Now, Cambodia is a part of ASEAN. India has very close relationship with ASEAN. ASEAN, as you know, was the center of India's look east policy. It is still a country with which we have close relationship. Cambodia is a country that has some of the biggest temples, Hindu temples outside India. So in that sense, it has a lot of cultural commonalities with us, although there's not much flourishing trade, which has given a chance to China to improve its presence in that part of the world. Maybe this is a wake-up call for India to improve our relationship in our neighborhood. Now, India's context, as I said again, openly we support as much infrastructure building as possible in the ASEAN countries. We can't openly say that this should not have been done because if something is helpful for Cambodia, we can't openly say that we don't like it. But yes, India would not want the Chinese naval presence to be so close to our border. On the other hand, Chinese Navy is anyways closer in the form of Hambantota port in Sri Lanka, in the form of good relationship with Bangladesh, Gwadar port in Pakistan. So in that sense, nothing new has happened. But yes, one more country in our neighborhood falling into the laps of China is not really an easy thing for us. It's not something that will give us a very good night's sleep. And this is where India has to ensure that the Chinese presence in this part of the world, especially nearby Bay of Bengal, is curtailed. It doesn't mean that India should openly go and challenge that, but yes, India should do its own bit to make sure these countries remain in our own good books. As I said, as far as ASEAN part is concerned, India has always been supporting of ASEAN countries in building their infrastructure, and this project is no different. Now, in terms of these kind of infrastructures being built or any kind of infrastructure being built in the international water, especially we have a body called UN Clause, United Nations Convention on the Law of Sea. They are the ones who mainly look into how international waters are treated, how the countries can claim to some of the ocean wealth in the international waters. The UN clause decides whether certain country can be given the right to explore certain minerals in international waters. They are the ones. They are the ones who look into whether the rights of the country are being curtailed or are being respected or not. The next article about again one of India's neighboring countries. This is Sri Lanka. Prime Minister Modi and President of Sri Lanka had 7 MOUs, that is Memorandum of Understandings, that have been signed here. Prime Minister Modi had a quick visit to the island country, and this is where multiple such agreements have been signed. Now, it's not that necessary to remember all these agreements to be true. UPSC will not ask, for example, which of these agreements was signed, which of the agreements was not signed. But in the larger context of things, in terms of India-Sri Lanka relations or our relationship with our neighboring countries, this is relevant to understand. Now, if you look at Sri Lanka, in most of our neighboring countries, by the way, including Sri Lanka, our relationship with them depends upon a lot on who exactly is in power. With the change in leadership, for example, when the Rajapaksa brothers were in power, some of these people are much closer to China. So when the Rajapaksa brothers or their family members are in power, Sri Lanka has a tilt towards China. And when that changes, they have a tilt towards India. Similar is the case with Nepal, Bangladesh, and a lot of these countries. Our relationship with them depends considerably on the person in power. Now, in this case, we have a government in Sri Lanka that is friendly to us right now. India played a very important role in helping Sri Lanka overcome the financial crisis, the financial mess that they were in just a few years back after COVID-19 pandemic. And continuing on that partnership, India and Sri Lanka have signed multiple agreements. Let me give you some of the examples of what agreements have been signed. So one is on defense cooperation. Defense cooperation, as in India would make sure that we have increased number of joint exercises. By the way, these kind of agreements are nothing path breaking as such. These are very common day-to-day agreements, because if a prime minister has gone there, they might as well sign something. It's not something that will change our foreign policy, or it's not a groundbreaking thing that has happened. These are very run-of-the-mill things that usually keep on getting signed. Then there's an agreement on energy and infrastructure. India has said that we will help them with building better energy grid connectivity. India has anyways put a lot of money, and we will put even more money in the Trincomalee port. This is a port where Sri Lanka has been building a lot of infrastructure. Along with UAE, India will try and improve the connectivity of this port specifically. There will also be inauguration of a solar power plant again at the Trincomalee port, because this is where India has been focusing a lot. See, ever since Hambantota port has been taken over by China in the form of a 99-year-old lease, India also is trying to improve our presence in Sri Lanka. Then India, that has given a lot of loan to Sri Lanka to help them come out of the crisis. There's a lot of loan pending. India has said we will reduce the rate of interest on the outstanding loan that Sri Lanka has on us. So after the COVID-19 pandemic, during that also Sri Lanka had many problems. They had the infamous Easter bombing case, where there were multiple bombs on churches, because of which the tourism sector got a hit in Sri Lanka. Incoming foreign tourists reduced. Then there was the COVID-19 pandemic that hit the country very badly, because the economy depends on tourism. Then the Sri Lankan government randomly decided that we want to go organic, or we want to adopt organic farming overnight. All of that destroyed the Sri Lankan economy, because of it they had to take multiple loans from India, from IMF, China, Japan, etc. So we still have a lot of loan pending, and we have decided to reduce the rate of interest on those loans. Then we also have cultural diplomacy. India and Sri Lanka have Buddhism in common. Uh, we have done this earlier as well, that we have sent Buddha's relics to Sri Lanka on important occasions. This is again not happening for the first time. India has again said that on important occasions such as the Vesak celebration, we will send Buddha's relics to your country, and we will also be helping in renovating religious sites. Again, these are things which do not require a lot of expenses or efforts from your side, but it actually improves your soft power in the other country. So that the people in Sri Lanka would know that, okay, India is helping Sri Lanka in managing all these aspects. So in the long run, it does help in creating a better image in the minds of other people, or people in Sri Lanka of India. Now, why is it that is doing this? Why is it important to have better relationship with Sri Lanka? Our ex-Prime Minister, late Atal Bihari Vajpayee, he made a very important argument, or there's a very famous quote from him. The quote is, "You can choose your friends, but not your neighbors. Your neighbors will remain the same, and you have to make do with them. You have to improve your relationship with them, because you don't have the luxury to say that no, I will not talk to you. I will have a new neighbor. You can't have a new neighbor. They will be your neighbor forever. So you might as well improve relationship with them. And we don't want these countries to fall into the laps of China. And this is why we have to keep on deepening our ties, especially in a situation where China has so much money, and China is spending so much money in Belt and Road Initiative by building their infrastructure. The Hambantota port example that we all know, where China built this port in Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka could not pay the money back, so China now controls the port for 99 years. Sri Lanka and India also have an issue of the Tamil population. Now, as you know, Sri Lanka in the past, because it was also a British colony, many of the Indians were taken by the British to Sri Lanka to work on their tea and coffee plantations. After the British left, that Indian population remained in Sri Lanka, that were called the Indian Tamils. They were discriminated against by Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka has faced or has seen a very deadly civil war as well, where the government of Sri Lanka was fighting against the Tamil population. After all that fighting ended, Sri Lanka introduced an amendment in the constitution, famously called the 13th Amendment. Under 13th Amendment, the Sri Lankan government promised that we will be giving more rights to our Tamil population. which has not been done positively so far. So this is where India and many other countries around the world are trying to push Sri Lanka to adopt the spirit of 13th Amendment. 13th Amendment, wherever you read this, that basically means giving more rights to the Tamil population in Sri Lanka, which has not happened. Sri Lanka and India also very often have fisheries conflict because both of us share water bodies. There are a lot of fishermen from India, especially Tamil Nadu, for example, who enter Sri Lankan waters, they get arrested, and Sri Lankan fishermen who enter Indian waters and they get arrested. So these kind of issues also have to get resolved. You will see after every few days there is a news that Sri Lankan fishermen caught by Indian coastal guard and vice versa. If you look at this, just for your context, this is where the Trincomalee harbor is. So this is where it is. This is the biggest port that they have. That is a Colombo port. The one that is controlled by China. This is the Hambantota port. So this is the one in Hambantota, China controlled. This is the biggest port, the Colombo one. In this port, Adani also has made an investment. This is the Trincomalee where again government of India has been pushing a lot of money and reforms here. So just to put this into context, this is where the location of these ports is. This is in line with India's foreign policy goals of neighborhood first, having better relationship with our neighboring countries. Because again, as I said, going back to the same idea, we cannot choose our neighbors. And this is where India's outreach to Sri Lanka has been so critical. So we are focusing on Trincomalee Energy Project, defense cooperation, and so on and so forth. It will also improve our presence in the Indian Ocean region, a region where we want to improve our influence, a region where we want to be a strong country going forward. All these projects will help us in the long run. It's also part of India's economic diplomacy. See, India cannot compete with China when it comes to money. We don't have the kind of cash, kind of forex reserve that China has. They can push and throw money around because they have a lot more money than India. We have to play much smarter, much safer with our money. But whatever little we can do to improve our relationship with the other countries like Sri Lanka, we do that so that we can make the nations aware of the Chinese debt trap and we can tell them or explain to them how are we different from them and how is it that they should maintain better relationship with us. The next article that we have here is about University Grants Commission, that is the UGC. Now this is based on a very real life problem. The problem is a lot of Indian students go abroad, take a degree or from abroad, let's say they study in US or Russia or Ukraine. When they come back and they try and find a job, their degrees are not acceptable. Because while our companies understand and accept and recognize, let's say BTech, BCom, MBA from Indian universities, if the same or similar kind of a degree is given in the US, they are not sure of their quality and they don't recognize them. So the students have a hard time getting a job back here. Or even if not a job, let's say you did your bachelor's in Ukraine or Belarus, you come back here, now you want to apply for an MBA. MBA requires you to be a graduate already. So whether your graduation from a foreign country will be considered or not, that's a big problem. This is where the UGC has now tried to simplify the issue of how the foreign degrees can be acceptable in India. Let me put that into context of what exactly have they said. So the University Grants Commission is trying to streamline this entire process to make sure that the foreign degrees can get equivalent acceptance in India. Now let's see how are they trying to do this. First, the applicity or the application specially put by the foreign students or by the students who have taken a foreign degree will be assessed by a standing committee. So there will be a standing committee of education experts that will be set up by the UGC. They will look into these applications, they will look into these kind of courses. It will only apply to professional qualifications like 3-year, 4-year courses or 2-year courses. It will not be applicable to you going abroad doing a 6 months or 6 weeks course or diploma and coming back. It will not be applicable to that. It will be applicable to long term 3-4 year courses like the ones that we have in the form of graduation or post graduation. So there will be a standing committee whose decisions will be issued within 10 days of application. So if you have a foreign degree and you are not being accepted here, you can apply to these committees. Within 10 days, they will see and make a decision. There will be an online portal, so you don't have to go anywhere to apply for this. And there will be certain parameters that will be set. Parameters about how compatible is it with Indian programs. For example, Let's say in India, MBA is offered in 2 years, or MBA is usually completed in 2 years. Some forms of MBA can be done in 1 year, like executive MBA, etc. Now, let's say a person is claiming that, I went to Belarus, I had my MBA in 3 months. Now, that is not comparable to what is taught in India. So, that compatibility will be checked. It might be called something else at Belarus, fine. But if you are saying that similar kind of a course was done there in 3 months or 2 months, the one that we do here in 2 years, then it will not be applicable. So that is how it will be checked. Whether it is compatible with the Indian programs, whether is it compatible to what we teach here, it may not be the same exactly, but is it compatible or not? This is also in line with the National Education Policy. The National Education Policy 2020 that the government is implementing now talks about how we should internationalize our Indian higher education. See, as the world is becoming more and more global, more Indian students are going outside, foreign students are coming into India. All that requires us to make sure that the degrees are accepted here, and vice versa. If you want to encourage Indian students going outside, you have to make sure that their degrees are accepted at on par with the Indian universities. And if you want to make India also a hub for foreign students coming here, you also have to do these kind of things. And this is why it is important for UGC, etc., to take such a step. It also safeguards the future of the student, so that they are not uncertain after coming back to India whether the degree will be accepted or not, after having spent so much money and so much time. Imagine how horrifying it will be for them to come back and see, oh, my degree is not even valid here. That is where all this problem has to be solved, and UGC has taken the right step in that regard. Internationally, this is a very common practice. US has a board called WES, UK has a board called NARIC. All of these evaluate foreign degrees. So if you go to US and you have an Indian degree that is not accepted, you can apply to these boards and they will look into whether that is acceptable or not. So it's a common practice, there is nothing new. It will actually bring us at par with most of the other countries, and it will help Indian diaspora as well to have a better presence. The last article that we have here is from the Indian Express newspaper, a kind of a sad news, that is our national highways and the lack of road safety that we have. Now, if you look at the national highways and the road safety, the problem is, despite having very low number of highways as proportion to the number of roads in India, the number of accidents in national highways is extremely high. That is why this article is written. Now, it's a topic from infrastructure. Infrastructure is a part of economics GS3. Infrastructure related questions are asked very commonly. This was a question asked in 2023. Do try and answer such questions. Tell us the answer in the comment section as well, so that you can test your knowledge. Now, as I said, the context is that because of the faults in engineering, because of the way that these highways, etc., are being built, that is leading to increasing number of accidents, increasing number of people losing their life. So the problem may be with the driver. We are not removing that part, but more the problem is with the engineering of the road. How is it built? How the U-turns are, how the turns are given. That is what is leading to these accidents, and it's less a problem with the driving skills. Now, NHAI, that is the National Highway Authority of India, specifically has to be the one that should take the blame here. It's this authority that looks into the engineering of the national highways, because of which we have seen so many accidents taking place. For example, just to put this into context, out of the total roads that we have in India, only 2% are national highways. Only 2% are national highways, while about 40% accidents in India take place on national highways. Imagine that. 2% roads are national highways and 40% accidents take place on national highways. And the CAG reports also tells the same story. And this is again mainly because of the faulty road design. A lot of accidents mainly involve two-wheelers. Lot of accidents involve heavy vehicles, and that are even more vulnerable. There are a lot of infrastructure that is very ill placed. It has not made much sense from the safety point of view. For example, this is the highway which has a speed limit of, let's say, 120 kilometer per hour. This is one way and this is the other way. All of a sudden there will be a break point here, so anyone can come and take a U-turn from here without any red light, without any stoppage. So someone going from here at a very high speed cannot imagine that someone will come here and take a U-turn. It's just one example of how badly these have been planned. leading to a lot of these accidents. Even in the newer highways that are being built, even they have similar problems. It's not that we don't know how to make safer highways. We have a lot of rules and regulations in place, but even they are not followed. At a time that India is investing so much in infrastructure, we have projects such as the Bharatmala Pariyojana, Setu Bharatam project. In all of these, safety has taken a backseat. We focus so much on the safety of the cars. Is it 5-star rated, 4-star rated, 3-star rated or not? But we have paid little attention to what the government should do. That is their responsibility. The common man will not go and build their road. We do have the National Road Safety Policy 2010, but hardly ever do we see penalties being imposed on the contractors that are building roads that are failing road safety audits. We do have a road safety audit mandate that the road should be audited for their safety mechanism or not, but again, hardly ever would we see any contractor being held accountable for that. If you see the National Road Safety Board that we have, it works independently, but it has again not held NHAI or the contractors accountable. Hardly ever would you see the NHAI being given the blame for any of these dangerous or disastrous accidents that we have. Every single day, every other day, we have these news stories of accidents, people losing their life, and you blame all of that on the drivers and rash driving. That is a part of it. But a bigger part of it is the problem with the infrastructure building and how these roads actually work. Now, if you look at the data, India accounts for about 11% of global road crash deaths. Very, very, very high. And if you look at our own government data suggests that 1.5 lakh people die in road accidents annually, and highways contribute 60% of these fatalities. Imagine, highways make up 60% of the road deaths in India. And that is why increasingly, if you see a lot of these big expressways that are being built now, they don't allow two-wheelers, they don't allow slow-moving vehicles. That is because they might disrupt the traffic. But again, there are still so many engineering faults that have to be corrected. This is what we can do: strengthen our auditing system, make the contractors and NHI responsible if they are not doing their job properly, make public data or make it public. People should know what are the spots where accidents are mostly happening so that they can be more careful there. Licenses also should be very strictly issued. There should be strict driving license check or driving check before the licenses are issued. All of this can be done to make the situation improve in the long run. These are the articles that we had for you today. Now, as always, let's first focus on a mains practice question. From the mains article that we discussed today, that was what the defense export, this kind of a question can be asked. India's emergence as a responsible defense exporter hinges not just on technological capability, but also on a robust regulatory framework, discussed with reference to India's defense export protocol and its strategic implications. Now, again, it's a very important and not a very difficult question to answer. It mainly focuses on how India is about to become or is on the path to becoming a major weapon exporter. You can introduce by telling about what the government of India is planning to do or what have been done in the past few years. If you want, you can also quote some data here. Quoting data, quoting facts is always a good way to begin. You can quote data about what is the goal that we have of achieving 50,000 crore worth of export by 2029, or the number that we have achieved over 23,000 crore till today. You can quote that before you come to the main body. In the main body, you can write about how our defense export is curtailed or what do we do to keep it in check. You can talk about how online authorization can be done. Talk about the SCOMET list that we discussed today. How is it that we regulate it? How is it that we make sure it does not fall into the wrong hands and it comes back to bite us? We also talk about how we comply with the global regimes, how we make sure exported items are not diverted somewhere else. If they are meant for a country specifically where we are exporting to, we make sure that it is used by them only. These are things that we can write in the main body. Before, you can write about what are the strategic and economic implications. Again, strategic implications, it improves our own global standing, it makes us self-sufficient, economically helps us earn much more foreign exchange. It also improves our position vis-a-vis China and other multiple other big powerhouses. All of these things can be written in the main body. And then conclude with the challenges and the way forward. What are the possible roadblocks that we are facing, because of which we may have a problem in realizing our dream of achieving that number. And you can conclude here. Try and write your own version as well. See if you are able to get close to this kind of an answer. Now, yesterday's session, we had a few practice questions for you, 3 of them. Let's first discuss these. Then I'll give you practice questions for today. If you want to attempt the quiz, which I highly recommend you to do, go to the description of this video. You'll find a link of our website. Go to the website, attempt the quiz, and tell us in the comment section what is your score. Yesterday, the question we discussed first was consider the following regarding Central Empowered Committee, CEC. It was established by Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change under Environment Protection. No. This was established by the Supreme Court in 2002. It is an advisory body to National Green Tribunal. No. It is an advisory body to Supreme Court only. So advises the Supreme Court on these environment related matters. Initially set up by the Supreme Court for monitoring environmental compliance. Yes, this part is correct. The answer is B. The first and the second statements here are wrong. Next, which of the following statement was sickle cell disease is correct? It's caused by bacterial infection. No, it's a genetic disease. It is not caused by bacterial infection. Sickle cell trait individuals exhibit symptoms such as swelling of hands, feet, anemia, periodic episodes of extreme pain. Yes, that is correct. Very, very, very painful disease. The government is working towards eliminating this. B is the correct answer here. With reference to interstate water disputes Act 1956, consider the following. It was enacted under Article 262 of the Constitution to resolve disputes about interstate water. Yes. Sorry. The decision of the tribunal under this act is subject to judicial review. No, it is not subject to judicial review. Supreme Court cannot interfere in this. That's why it's so important. Only first is correct. The answer thus is A. These were the questions that we gave you yesterday for homework. Now it is the time for today's homework based on what we discussed today. First question about aquaculture. You can pause and then think about it, read it, or you can, I would highly suggest, attempt the quiz on our website and get your score. This is the second question for the day about University Grants Commission. Third question is about India-Sri Lanka relations. Then we have a question about road safety in India. And the last question for your homework is about the Ream Naval Base. All these we have discussed. You should be able to answer these. Again, go to the comment section. Look at the link, or go to the description rather. Look at the link, go to our website and attempt the quiz. Tell us in the comment section what is the answer to this. I hope you learned something new today. If you're new here, do hit the subscribe button for all other initiatives. If you are preparing for this year's prelims examination, starting from Monday, you will have, that is tomorrow, we will be beginning our prelims master course, that is a prelims crash course. We'll be starting with economics classes. Don't forget to join us. That will be live from 11:45 a.m. That we'll be covering the entire economics for you, especially if you're appearing for this year's prelims examination. Thank you so much. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye. Jai Hind.